I feel like sometimes I wish we'd just start with like a song. Like if
I
we
mean, we
just
can.
if we just go live and all of a sudden we were singing, I think these guys would really enjoy that. As ridiculous as that sounds. What is happening? Thank you for joining us here on another episode of the Train Station. In today's show, we're going to talk about socialization, but we're going to talk about the big picture approach. Whether you have a puppy, a rehomed dog, or a dog that you're working on some socialization issues with, and we're going to really dive into what that means. But this is the video for you. We also want to hear from you in the chat. You know, what are you working on? What are your current struggles? We have a pretty methodic, is that the right word, approach to socialization, whether it's a puppy or it's a rehome dog that we take in, and we're going to talk a little bit about that with you guys here today.
Yeah. Socialization is just such a big word in dog training, and it often means, it can mean a number of different things. And often when we hear people say, I need to socialize my dog, or I want to socialize my dog, their idea of how to do it is actually really different than what we suggest that you do. And so when we were talking about different topics to talk about today, it's just something that comes up a lot in our weekly students that we have in-house at our actual dog training school. And I thought it would just be a really good topic to share with all of you guys online, because I'm sure you guys have similar questions or goals or concerns with your own dogs. Now, for those of you who don't know us, my name is Kayl McCann, and this is...
I'm Ken Steepe.
Ken Steepe.
We are professional dog trainers at McCann Dogs, and at McCann Professional Dog Trainers, we've helped we're almost at 100,000. We've helped more than 90,000 dogs to overcome the same challenges that you might be having with your dog right now. So this is a great time for us to chat with you, to talk specifically about the things that you are working on. And that's why we do these train stations. And we do enjoy it. It's a bit of a scramble. Like, I was stuffing pizza down my face just
literally.
before. I was so worried after I ate. I thought, okay, do I have pizza on me? I'd hate to go live and then you guys just see like pizza hanging off of my face. It would be impossible.
That actually could happen with you
It
as well.
absolutely could happen. It would be impossible for you guys to not to not stare at that the whole time. But as we wind down...
I see that Liv is requesting a shout out.
Oh, Liv? Yeah, you know what? Just for Liv, I'm going to give her a special one. This
What's
is
up,
for you.
Liv?
Welcome to the train station.
I had
Welcome back to the train
harmony
station.
vocal toot toots.
Yeah,
There.
For me, I just love tooting. So every opportunity that I get, I will take to toot. I see lots of you guys are jumping in to the chat. Let us know, what your current struggle is with socialization. I think that's going to be our question of the day.
Yep.
I think, what are you working on with your puppy, with your adult dog? Maybe it's a rehome dog, or maybe it's a dog that you find, struggles in certain settings. Maybe there's some stuff that you find that you've been working hard on and it's just not coming together. The other thing that I just clicked in my mind is we now have, you guys have been asking us for like, oh, I wish you lived closer. Oh boy, I wish I was closer to you guys. We now have our, it's basically My Dog Can. It's our homeschool program 2.0 available for you guys.
Exciting.
If you type exclamation point homeschool in the chat, you can actually get access to that. So you can check it out. It's where you can actually work with us. One of the greatest challenges with dog training is the specific nuances, the specific things that each dog needs. And this isn't just like a watch your the information kind of program. It's where you actually work with professional dog trainers that supervise you and help you throughout your training journey. So
It's a great sense of community as well, because there's so many people on it with lots of different breeds, different ages, and so many people go through exactly the same problems.
Absolutely.
Which is great, because one person asks a question and then, 5 other people are like, oh my God, I'm having the same thing.
Right.
So it's been fabulous to sort of help put people from all over the place.
Pre-show's done. It's time to get this train started. This train on the tracks. Whatever a cool sounding train thing is.
I feel like you missed the mark there, but that's okay.
Socialization in your dog training. Let's talk about the big picture approach. I'm Ken Steepe.
I'm Kayl McCann.
Welcome back to McCann Dogs. So the other thing you might notice in the chat is we have a very, very helpful helper. Dan.
He's a helpful helper.
Lots of Links Luton. You guys, if you've been here before, you know who Lots of Links is. He is going crazy in the chat, making sure that you get as much access to the resources that you might need. But I love going, and if you've been here before, drop a toot toot in the chat. If you're like a long time passenger here on the train station, just a little toot toot, and I'll know where you're coming from. But one thing we know, one thing I love to do is go to our satellite feed of Dan the Man. And I last week it was a little bit turned, or 2 weeks ago it was turned sideways. I screwed up the wiring.
That's right.
I've fixed it.
Did you?
It's been fixed.
Oh, thank gosh.
So let's go live to Dan.
I only want to see Dan straight up.
I know. Let's see what's happening with Dan. Oh boy. Oh no. Okay. All right. Well, yeah. I mean, he may be taking some of these precautions. I mean, it just makes sense. It also keeps him from licking his stitches, so it's quite helpful. And you know what's even more impressive?
I can't believe his head fits in that thing.
I know. It's pretty impressive. What's even more impressive is how much he's typing in the chat and with the cone on. Like, that's impressive. I can hardly type, with all of my digits available and a clear line of sight.
Your pointer fingers, sweetie.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good point. The other thing we love to do if you're joining us here in the train station is a big fat roll call. I want to know where you guys are joining us from. I've seen some people that have been dropping it in the chat already.
And I
way
actually
ahead
see
of
a couple
us.
of people that say first timer as
Oh,
well,
yeah.
which is
So
awesome.
very cool. I see Angie Richards. Let's see here. Angie's a first timer.
Yay.
Thanks for joining us here, Angie. I can see a few more. It's hard to keep up with the chat sometimes, but what we do, if this is your first time here, is we'll deliver some information, go to your questions, deliver some more information, and we'll see if we can try to keep up. But it can be a challenge. As you can see, the chat is rolling by pretty quickly. But I want to say hello. This is Romper Room time.
Did you put your train up?
I want to say, yeah, I did. It actually rolled by.
Oh.
So I see Northwest Indiana. Oh boy, it's going quickly. Greensburg, Indiana, Rhode Island, Ohio, Orange County, California. Thanks for coming back, Jennifer Dentino. Kathy Beck, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Oh, it's going fast. Connecticut, Orangeville, Ontario. Linda, thanks for joining us. Second time, Helen says, from Eastern Washington State. Marla's coming in from California. Homie John from Phoenix, Arizona. Diana from Florida. Ruth from Pennsylvania. Michaela from Georgetown, Kentucky. Oh boy, it's going so fast. It's hard to keep up. Beth from Michigan. Connie from sunny Florida. I'm jealous, Connie. It sounds beautiful down there.
Yes.
It's quite overcast.
It's getting
and
better
cold
here,
in
though.
Canada.
It's getting better here.
Oh, Susie from rainy Manchester, UK.
Nice.
Thanks for hanging out with us here in the train station,
It must
Susie.
be late there.
It's quite, I think we've asked this almost every time, but I think it's 5 hours. I think it might be like 11:30. Is that a thing?
That's how they say it.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Okay. Let's dive in. Let's start talking about socialization and probably the biggest mistake that people make when it comes to socialization. So why don't we sort of take that as our jumping off point?
Absolutely.
So do you want to start with that?
Yeah. So lots of times, especially with people who get new dogs or they have young dogs, puppies, socialization is a real focus for people. And what we wanted to do is just sort of give you a broader idea of what socializing your dog actually means, so that you can set your dog up for a lot of success. Most of the time when you think about socializing dogs, the very first thing people go to is dogs playing with other dogs, and that's like one small piece of socialization that, in our opinion, when we have young dogs, is actually not super important. The bigger thing is to socialize your dog more broadly. So, things like getting them to expose to new places, new sounds, new surfaces, new people. Those types of things are really where you should be starting. Socializing with other dogs is a very tricky subject, and it can be done very well, and it can also be done horribly.
Right.
So we want to educate you guys today on what we've learned is sort of the kind of a good way to go about this based on our own experience with our own dogs, and also the thousands of dogs that we've seen come through our classes, because we've seen lots of different situations in dogs that have really improved through socialization. Again, not specifically with dogs, but just broadly. And then also on the flip side, dogs who have had poor socialization experiences, maybe with other dogs or dog parks, or just walking down the street sometimes, and sort of what that can do to your dog, and also with what can happen with your relationship with your dog. So we thought this would be a really important topic to talk to you about tonight. If I could speak, that would be really helpful for this live stream.
It's going to be a long show.
I will get better, I promise.
So I was just, as you were talking there, I was just thinking, a lot of you guys maybe in a situation with all that's going on in the world right now, that you're going to have a little bit more time with your dogs. You're going to be able to focus a little bit more on working with them. The challenge might be that you're not able to get to some of these busier environments. So we know, when it comes to socialization, that it's sort of in layers. So why don't we just sort of cover like a handful of things that we socialize dogs to, and then we can maybe talk about some specific situations that you guys can focus on.
Can you set aside this question?
Yep.
Yes. So when we have puppies or if we have older dogs, we try specifically to expose our dogs to lots of different things when we feel that they're ready. So if we have a really young dog, I'm a little bit apprehensive to take my young puppy, like say under 4 months, on a walk, for example. And that's usually really shocking to people. We don't walk our baby puppies.
Yeah, not at all.
Because I don't really, before I've really established some control and some relationship and some trust and bond between me and my pup, I don't necessarily want to expose them to loud trucks or new people and dogs on the street that I might not know and those types of things. I'm going to really build a lot of value on me and relationship building, all that kind of stuff, just me and the puppy. But what I am going to do when I have that young puppy, once it has its proper vaccines, of course, is I might take the puppy different places, and I might, let different people say hello to the puppy or give the puppy some treats or, those types of things. I actually focus a lot more on people and places and things first before I deal with other dogs. And there's a couple of reasons why we do it this way. Number one is we find that dogs will bond to dogs very, very, very quickly, which can be good, but also can be really challenging when you're trying to establish some type of relationship with your dog. So, for example, when we have a new puppy, or if we actually have brought in an older dog into our pack a few years ago, we did a lot of isolation. So we have all of the dogs that are used to being together, and then we have the puppy separate. And we spend a ton of one-on-one time with that puppy or that new dog, building a bond, doing some training, teaching the puppy that, the sun shines out of our ears and that they really, really like us, so that when we're challenged by having a dog there as a distraction, the dog's already had many, many, many repetitions of choosing us and being rewarded for that without too many distractions or competition around. So that's something that we really focus on.
And remember, your puppy, those dogs speak the same language already. And we're really trying to teach our puppy or our young dogs in training to listen to us, to understand what we're trying to tell them, what we're trying to ask of them. So don't make it any harder on yourself than it already is.
Yeah. And so then we'll, setting the dog thing aside for a second, because we'll go back to that and speak about it in depth, is the, sights and sounds and things and places, those types of things. Again, I'm going to be really careful. It's really important when your puppy is, especially if you have a puppy that's young, and even if you have an older dog that maybe isn't super confident, that every new situation that you put your dog in, your puppy in, is going to be one that is positive, or if there's a possibility of it not being positive, you making sure that you have a really clear out. Because we need to be our dog's advocate. And at the end of the day, we want our dog to feel really comfortable and confident and secure when they have us with them, and that they don't feel like they need to be the one to kind of set the tune or be protective or that type of thing. We want them just to sit back and relax, knowing that we're going to take care of all of those things for them and we're going to keep them safe. Now, that doesn't mean coddling the dog or rewarding, worried behavior. It just means, being confident and making good choices so that our dogs are being able to be set up for success. When we have young dogs, Ken and I live, not really in the city. We live outside the city. So our dogs, we don't have sidewalks or anything like that. We do have people around our house, but not a lot. So we try to make a special effort to expose our dogs to different things. So, especially when our dogs are young, we throw them in the car. We take a quick car ride down to, downtown Burlington or Dundas or whatever it happens to be. And we'll just walk the dog around the town. We'll get them around people. We don't even necessarily interact with people. We just get them around the different places and sounds. We did that a lot with Beeline, our youngest dog, just to expose her to different things. And initially she was a little bit overwhelmed by it. So we sort of we did it very calmly and very slowly as she started to get more comfortable. And initially, I didn't really worry about her interacting with people or things because that was a bit too much for her. And as we started to experience this more, you know, she was like, okay, we've done this 5 or 6 times. I think I'm pretty more, you know, I'm more relaxed. Then we would start to incorporate having more people saying hello to her and different things like that. But we sort of let her dictate the pace. But at the same time, we were always headed towards how can we build this up? How can we make it more successful? How can we find growth here?
Right, absolutely. I think I was just shooting a video with instructor Lauren a few days ago, and she, if you have a small breed dog, so especially a small breed puppy, make sure you check out Saturday morning's video. It's for you. It's exactly. We have so many people on the channel that are saying like, I wish you had more stuff for small breed dogs. Now, this is going to be your opportunity to check that out. But at one point, when Lauren and I were chatting, when we were shooting the video, she mentioned, you know, think of socialization as confidence building. That's really what you're doing. You're giving your dog all these experiences to build more confidence. And that's, you know, changing your frame of minds, because we think of socialization with being social with other humans, you know, interacting and engaging with other people. But for dogs, that's not the focus. That mustn't be your focus if you want to have some expectation that they're going to listen. One of the, it's funny, we'll get students, you know, we have all kinds of grade 1 students, and grade 1 and our My Dog Can program is kind of the same thing, but grade 1 is our like family dog obedience, walk on a loose leash, come when called, sit and stay, all that stuff. So we'll see a dog who really struggles in when they're working on like their stay, for example, or walking on leash. They're really interested in visiting with the other dogs, and that handler has to, you know, work a little bit harder, or we'll give them some advice to get for them to be successful. But what we'll find, and this happened to me just the other day, was the owner said, oh, you know, actually, to tire her out a little bit, I let her go play with a bunch of other dogs because I thought that would help me out. And now he has the expectation that his dog is going to remain in at his side and not be distracted by those other dogs when she's just had 25, 30 minutes of being rewarded by playing with, chasing, engaging, interacting with all of these other dogs. What are your expectations? Do you expect that your dog can walk on a loose leash and not pull when another dog comes around? If that's your goal, then you really need to think about, how am I going to set this up? How am I going to make it so that I'm more valuable? Your dog ultimately will, here's the thing, your dog ultimately will have these opportunities to interact and play with other dogs. However, they need a foundation of listening first. You need to know that you can be successful. And socialization is a big, big part of this, making them comfortable with the experience of new places, of being around people. All of these things are really, it's building blocks, and you need to focus on the foundation. And socialization is foundational training for your dog.
I think it's really important to say, like, what we're suggesting to you is not long term. This is just while the dogs are young or inexperienced or new to you. We want you to really create a really solid bond and focus and some training and control first before you really focus on letting the dogs go play. You know, this afternoon I went on, you know, my family has a very big property where our training school is, 22 acres, and myself and 3 other instructors took all of our dogs on a huge walk, and I think we had 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 dogs with us, all off leash. And you know, they were playing together and running together. And, you know, every couple of minutes we would practice calling, you know, one dog back and rewarding them and then sending back out. And then we would yell, lie down. And all of the dogs would lie down in the field. Okay. And then we let them run around. So even though they were playing and having just a whale of a time, at the end of the day, if we needed or wanted control, we could do that. And the way we were able to accomplish being able to have that much control is because we didn't start out by letting them play with other dogs and just sort of taking off in the field and ignoring us. We would go out individually with them or go out with them on a long line and work on calling them back to us away from a distraction and teaching them what our expectation was and how to do it successfully, so that the value was more about us over and over and over and over and over again, until our dogs basically said, "Ooh, and I come back to you, great things happen. I prefer to be with you." And then once we got that over out of the way, then we would let the dogs go and have a little bit more freedom. I think people forget that Dan, a whale of a time. You always come up with new sayings.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was a good one.
Isn't it? Is that not what it is?
Let's have a whale of a time.
Is that not what you say?
I think that's a saying.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, now I forgot what I was saying.
Daniela dropping the super chat. Deegan rolling in on the Texas 2104. That's what I'm going to call that because I know that's a train name. Thank you for the super chat from Daniela. So Daniela asks, how can I keep my 13-week-old Aussie entertained while I'm working from the home office? She's pretty well behaved, but I hate leaving her alone. Now, this is a really common thing that we hear, Danielle, and this is going to be that opportunity for you to C. Ellis dropping.
Thank you.
Dropping the super chat. Thank you very much. A longtime train station passenger. Thank you very much for the super chat. So, talking about management with your puppy. Oh, see, there's Beeline. Isn't it fun?
She's
the
so
different
cute.
dogs will just
Look
pop
at that
up.
little
It's adorable.
freckle face.
So let's talk about Daniela's question.
Yeah.
Can you fire away on that one?
Yeah,
I'll
for
start
sure.
grabbing this stuff.
So keeping them entertained at home while you're in the office, when you're at home, it can be really easy to let the dog, sort of be free all the time. But if you're busy and you're doing stuff, think about what your puppy's doing to entertain themselves. If we want to let the puppy have some free time, typically we try to do it at a time when, we're not really invested in paying attention to something else. Or I might get a Kong, or I might get a bone and put a long line or a leash on, pull the dog bed close to where my feet are, step on the leash or the line so the puppy has sort of a small space to roam around. And see if the puppy will just learn to chill and lie and chew on their bone or play with their Kong. And if a few minutes go by and the puppy's just really busy, I'll either get up and address it, or I'll just put the puppy in its crate for a little while, take them out for a pee, and then maybe try again a little bit better, because I do want my puppy to learn to chill when I'm in the house. And then I might take a break from work and go and do some training. I might do some tricks. I might do some things that really stimulate the dog's brain. I might do some tugging. I might do some retrieving, things that are active. And then usually the puppy's pretty relaxed. Make sure you give them a good potty break, and then bring them in and either pop them back in their crate or revisit the chilling out on the bed at your side again, now that the dog's exuded some energy and used their brain. That's sort of what I would do. Honestly, when we're at home and we're working in the office, though, if we can't give the dog full attention, we will just pop the puppy in their crate for a little while, and then just take breaks often, take the pup out, walk them, interact with them, do some training.
What a great way to break away from whatever you're doing, writing emails or whatever.
Ever. Puppy play,
yeah.
And then put them away. And as the dogs get a little bit older and they start to get more training, you'll find you have to do that less and less, because the dogs will have the ability to kind of chill out and go and lie down and relax until you're ready to get up and do something with them. But sometimes that can be really challenging for a puppy in 13 weeks. That's really young still.
Yep.
So I would just do it in really small spurts.
So I want you to focus on quality time, not quantity of time. And you'll see all of our trainers, we have a lot of puppies at the training hall right now, like
so
a lot of puppies. But what you'll see is those trainers will get that dog out and they will do something engaging, interactive, something, training or exercise or something with that dog. And then the puppy's ready, especially at 13 weeks, the puppy's ready to have a rest.
Yeah.
So, work your butt off, have some fun. We have so many puppy training videos here on the YouTube channel that you're going to find super helpful. You'll be able to do some of those exercises, pop the puppy in their crate, go back to work for a little bit. Maybe preemptively go back to the crate and get your puppy out again and take them out to go pee and start the training session again. But breaking it up with the crate is so helpful. I want to jump into let's talk a little bit about these two. Let's talk about two of the other things that we focus on when it comes to socialization, because I've seen some dogs develop, some struggles when it comes to things like new surfaces. And specifically, have you ever seen this? Have you seen a dog who you'll be walking down the sidewalk or down the street and the dog will completely avoid something like a manhole cover? Mm-hmm. It's pretty common.
Or a grate.
Or a grate or something like that.
Yeah.
So we know that part of your socialization process, whether it's a puppy or a young dog in training, needs to be surfaces. Think about getting your dog, moving them around on some of these surfaces. And while you're doing that, make this as positive as an experience as it can be, but also do some training. Do some training in these situations so that your dog really understands that all of these things around me can change, that, the environment or the stimulation that's around me in my environment can change, but the expectation is always the same, that I listen, that I work with you, that you are someone, I'm speaking about you, that you are someone that your dog can look to for information. But moving your training around on something as simple as new surfaces can be really, really effective for puppies, for puppy training and young dog training. We'll often get things like, we'll put you know those like expanding baby gates? You know what I'm talking about? It's like, it looks like an accordion. We'll put those down on the ground, and we'll literally just walk the puppy around on top of those
and
things.
Downs, or like tarp sometimes. It'll be slippery and it'll be crinkly. Just sort of exposing them to different things. But also there's like in-house things that sometimes people need to approach cautiously depending on the dog, like vacuuming your house. I know sometimes puppies for the first time when you turn the vacuum on are like, whoa, what is that? We've had dogs react two different ways. We've had some dogs that are a little bit taken back by it.
Yeah.
And we have a couple border collies that want to attack it because it's stimulating and it's exciting. So we've had to work through both of those things. So, there's lots of objects. There's household things. There's footing. Open stairs can be a really hard thing for dogs to do sometimes. The stairs that don't have the backs to them.
Yeah.
Taking that slowly. One of my best tricks for teaching stairs is to go down instead of up first, and to pick your pup up and let them just put them on the bottom step and just let them go down one step. And then pick them up, let them go down 2 steps. And you just it's called back chaining. It's a great thing to do. Or you also could do it, Ken and I did with Deegan, and that's not teach them stairs until they're older, and then you don't have to worry about them going downstairs.
Yeah, it's actually quite effective.
Yeah.
There's something that I just saw one of the questions go by. I want to dive into a couple of these questions and see what we can...
Holy.
So I like this one. Deep Mindfulness Collective, often a passenger here on the train station. It says, we live in Brooklyn, New York City. Very cool. I think Brooklyn's a beautiful city. We exposed her to 100 things, but we forgot steps. So now she's afraid of curbs and any sets of steps, not climbing them, their existence. And just as Deep Mindfulness Collection mentions that, Caroline drops a super sticker.
Thank you, Caroline.
Thank you for the super sticker. Very cool. And the keep it up. And the
Caroline, maybe.
Could be Caroline.
Caroline or Carolyn?
Caroline. I think you're right. I think it's Caroline. You're right. Yeah. I apologize, Caroline.
She's going to give us $5. We need to say her name right.
Yeah, for sure. So Deep Mindfulness Collective, this is exactly what we were talking about. It's amazing. You'll quickly discover some of the things you might have missed. The nice part is that if you're working with your dog, going out, doing these things, focusing on, what sort of progress do I need to make? What steps forward, pardon the pun, what do I need to make with this dog? You can identify those things early and then train through them, making it as positive an experience as it can be. I want to jump to this one just for a second. Sylvia says, how can you train your dog to get into the car? He is super anxious and barks in the car. So this is something that we get occasionally. We'll talk to our students a little bit about if they have a dog who barks incessantly in the crate and just gets really wound up in the crate. Break it down a little bit. Get your dog in. Number one, get them in a position where, and I'm not sure whether you're going into a crate in the car, but if your dog, make sure your dog's restrained somehow. If your dog's already stressed, the last thing you want is the dog moving around the cabin of the vehicle. But just open the doors. Allow the dog to go in and then feed them, reward them when it's not moving. Then maybe the next step for you might be go and start the car, or turn the radio on, change something, make it a little bit more immersive, and then reward the dog for being good. Address the whatever the negative behaviors. Maybe you just replace them back into their position. And
we've had a lot of
reinforce
success
the good
with
stuff.
Having people, because there's lots of dogs that have anxiety with the car. That's actually really not that uncommon.
Yeah.
We've had a lot of success with some of our students feeding them their meals in the car without the car on, like Ken suggested, taking them out. And for some dogs that are actually really worried, even just letting them eat the food near the car outside, like don't even go in the car to begin with. And then if you can get them to the point where they're in the car and then out of the car, but all while the car's not on, typically it makes it a little bit easier. If your dog starts to become more confident with the car, typically the barking will subside. Usually, sometimes barking is because the dogs are excited or maybe because they're a little bit worried or unsure. And so if you change their thought process of how they feel when they're in the car, often the barking will subside. So it's best to also, if you have a dog, this is also for dogs that are car sick as well, to eventually go for short car rides more often rather than longer car rides, which can be a little bit scarier for them.
Yeah, and treat it like a training moment. It's hard when, and this is something we'll talk about in just a couple of minutes, it's difficult when you're always struggling because you're in the moment and you don't have an opportunity to train your dog, whether that means, they're whatever, barking around other dogs or whatever the situation is. Somebody rings the doorbell. It's hard because number one, it's unpredictable. It happens, and then you have to reactively deal with it. But the real challenge there is that you can't control some of these things. So what you do need to do is set the situation up as a training situation. So for the doorbell, I'm going to maybe get my neighbor or one of us will go outside and ring the doorbell. For the instance where you're dealing with in the car, set it up, because if you need to take your dog to somewhere, wherever you're going, it's tough because number one, you need to get to that place, and your attention is not on your dog, and it certainly isn't on your dog training, and it's not good information for your dog. So break it down a little bit, spend some of your training time focusing on those challenges. Let's see. Okay, I want to answer this question. Lady Matriarch, better summarize. I need help with kids and puppies. I have a 3-year-old and a 9-month-old human babies. My 5-month-old GSD and
it's funny that we have to specify
her
that.
house line is dangerous. She's rough and rowdy. Please help. Now, this is a common question or a conversation we have with, and we actually have a couple of instructors right now with little ones as well. They have puppies, so I mean they would probably go to great lengths answering this question, but what do we normally suggest to those people?
Separation, and obviously you're not going to put your kids in a crate, put them away.
Right.
They obviously get the right of the house. But yeah, it can be really difficult, especially if you have a house line on and the puppy moving around, but it's going to be even more mayhem if you have a 5-month-old puppy that's not on leash and 2 young kids moving around, because if the puppy is jumping on them or is nipping or biting or stealing toys or whatever they're doing, and you don't have a leash attached, you're not going to be able to safely and effectively reduce that behavior. So separation is going to be really important. When the kids are out and doing things, then, puppy maybe needs to be on the other side of a baby gate or maybe in a crate, or when the puppy is out with the kids, maybe the leash needs to be in your hand for now until you're able to, have a little bit more training. You got to get this puppy some training as well. So, 5 months old, it's ready now to work on response to name and being on a loose leash and learning about not jumping up and a leave it command. All of those things are so important to be really focusing on so that you have some skills to use when this puppy is around the kids. The most important thing to bide you the time between now and the puppy maybe isn't trained to when the puppy is try not to let the puppy rehearse bad behavior. So you need to really diminish the roughhousing or the nipping and the biting. And really the only way to do that is to immobilize the puppy with the leash or to do more separation to allow you to not have the behavior rehearse, because then it's going to be a lot harder to fix. But I do not envy you having 2 young kids and a puppy. That is definitely, that's a tall order to go for sure. Sometimes puppies are going to take the back seat a little bit. That's just how it's going to be. Don't feel guilty. Just do the best you can.
Hawaii 5-0 dropping the super chat. Very cool. And it's neat that that one is yellow. Kind of cool. How appropriate. Hawaii 5-0. Thank you for the super chat. And
we love Hawaii.
Yeah, we got married there not that long ago. Actually, almost a year ago.
Yeah.
And Deegan's coming and rolling in on the train. Very cool.
Popular today.
Okay, so Hawaii 5-0 says, aloha, and asks, our 7-month-old Rottweiler, very well bred pup, has developed stranger danger. She attends puppy daycare. We have a routine and take her everywhere. Coco needs your help. Well, her parents do. So that's a little bit non-specific, but let's talk a little bit about... I worry sometimes about giving information specific to dogs that are reactive, whether it's to other dogs or to people, because if not knowing the specifics of the situation.
Could you maybe let us know when you say stranger danger, is the puppy shying away or is the puppy being reactive? Because it's kind of hard to tell because the response that we give you is very dependent on what's happening there.
Let's maybe we can focus, and as long as it's not like reactive barking at people, like trying to get them. Why don't we talk?
Shy,
okay, this is great. So let's maybe talk a little bit about that.
It can be really difficult. I think I would be a little bit careful about daycare and sort of what kind of experiences the puppy is having there.
And just hold that thought.
Yes.
Because Monica Torres is bringing Deegan back out. Yes, see, I like how this goes. This is randomized, I promise. But Deegan is my favorite one to come out. Okay, we'll answer Monica's question in just a moment.
Yeah, just be careful about daycare. Make sure that if you are going to be utilizing a service like that, be really careful about what's happening with the puppy, in day-to-day circumstances in terms of the dog with other people and, of course, your dog with other dogs. Sometimes situations like that, like daycare or play parks or whatever, they can sometimes make it worse before it makes it better. I think having a routine is really important, and I think taking the puppy lots of places is important, provided that those experiences are going to be really good.
Right.
We've actually had a few shyer dogs in our classes lately, and one of the things that we have found to be really helpful with pulling these puppies out of their shell, I'm thinking of like Nellie in our Tuesday class and how just like strides that dog's made in a couple weeks. Number one is, the information that you give a dog that's a little bit worried or unsure, it needs to be super clear and super important because, having a dog that feels that their person, has things under control really can help their confidence. The other thing that has worked really well with this other dog is, instead of going up and like kind of push ourselves on her to say hello, which was really too much for her when she first started coming to classes, she would actually growl and shy away. We would just sort of stand nearby and we would toss food at her, from like 15, 20 feet away. And she'd kind of look at us and then get the food up as if to say, I don't know about that. And we just we gave her space and we were very quiet and calm around her. And then, what do we know? We had high value food when we did it. Towards the end of the very first class, the dogs just sort of assumed that she was going to get food, and she actually came right up to me. And instructing people and how to interact with your puppy is also really important. So
this is really important.
Try not to face like if the person.
You know what? This is a great opportunity.
Yeah, we can show.
To head on over.
This is actually good for everybody on how to greet a dog, because a lot of people say hello to dogs, not in a way that sets the dog up for success. So whether your dog is anxious or unsure or whether your dog is not, this is going to be good for you.
I'm going to have to toot again. Okay, let's head on over to the train station. We can talk a little bit about introducing your dog to people. Also, a little bit about your expectations and maybe what information you can communicate with people when they do come up to greet your dog. And Monica, we will get to it will just be to your question in just a moment. Let's head on over.
What? Hello? Okay, come here. So, B obviously is not worried about Ken, so I want you to use your imagination. But I do want to draw one thing. Sometimes what happens is if people approach the dog, just approach me for a second. A lot of time people end up doing this because they're apprehensive about, what's going to happen. And if somebody approaches and I have an unsure dog and I automatically start to pull on her leash, she's going to sense that I'm stressed, and that's going to deliver right down to the leash. And that's not a very good idea for me to do. So the best thing for me to do, I'm just going to give you a couple pieces of food here, is have somebody just throw some food towards her, just on the floor to let her get it. Good girl. Get it. Good girl. Just so she doesn't have to go towards that person. Get it. Good. Here it is. Here. Get it. I know this carpet's hard to see the food.
I know. I can't even see it.
Yeah, if the dog starts to get more comfortable with this, and again, this might not happen in the same training session. So what the person could do is just approach the dog, turn their body just to the side, put some food in their hand, 1 or 2 pieces, and just outstretch their hand and let the puppy take a hold of the food. Okay? And this body language is extremely important. Just turn and face her. When we're face on from the dog, and especially if somebody's bending over top, that is very, very intimidating. And again, if I had a dog...
Especially for a worried dog. A dog that's already like, I don't know about that.
For a worried dog. But if you didn't have a worried dog, when I bend over and do this, I have a dog that's more prone to jump. That will actually encourage the jumping as well. So turning the body away and just rewarding that way is really important. When that happens, me as the handler who has the leash on the dog, again, I'm not going to be pulling back tight. I'm just going to let the puppy or the dog be on a loose leash, and I'm going to praise the dog in a very calm voice. Good girl. That's it. What I don't want to do is if she's worried, go, it's okay, girlie, it's okay, and be speaking to her in that tone, because basically I'm saying, be worried. Good girl, I like when you're worried. So the tone of my voice and the type of voice that I use for the dog is also very important as well. Oh,
Drop in a super chat.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyways, we'll wrap this up. So this is what I would sort of start with. And if this in itself is not comfortable enough for your dog, just have them throw some food at her to begin with, just to sort of get her comfortable with that.
Okay.
Good girl.
Good, and don't rush the process. If you're not sure, you don't want to. I think Beeline's inhaled one of these little treats. Don't rush the process. If you're not sure if your dog is ready for it, then take your time. You know, it's not a race. That's for sure. Okay. Until I need to toot again, we're back over here. Okay.
We
Let's
have
talk
another
to
one that we have
Monica.
to.
Yeah, Monica had a good question. So Monica, this is perfect. This Saturday's video is for you. You're going to enjoy it. But any tips for helping my small breed pup's confidence in new places when other people try to immediately come up with their dog and say hi? Personal space.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a real challenge. And with a small breed dog, there may be situations, and you know, a lot of people say like, oh, don't pick that dog up, don't lift that dog up off the ground. But there may be situations where to avoid a situation like that, you might need to take your dog up and remove yourself.
100% pick the puppy
remove
up.
yourself from that situation.
Yeah.
You need to focus on your puppy's confidence. So you might work, in those areas with, if you can set the situation up with less people around, so that you can do something positive for that puppy, or spend even more time just being around wherever at home, rewarding your dog for confidently moving away, from your home toward whatever the location is. But you really don't have control of other dogs, so you need to avoid those situations where you think it could happen. That's really what I want you to take away from this. You can do all the coaching you want, but my dog's friendly. It's fine. He's friendly. And then you find out that he's not friendly. Mm-hmm. So don't allow your dog to be in these situations, especially when you've got a small breed dog.
I think it's important to remember, like, as humans, can you imagine if like you were at the mall or the grocery store and like just random people just kept coming up and like getting in your personal space and hugging you and jumping on you and doing all those things? Like, it's not really the best idea for your dog to get mauled by all people and all dogs in every situation they go to. Some dogs just don't like that. Other dogs live for it. Other dogs don't like it, or they're not ready for that yet. So our job as the owner is to assess the situation and decide, is this situation going to be beneficial for my dog and beneficial for me and my dog's relationship? Because if I already have a dog that's a bit unsure, or maybe I have a dog that's a bully, or maybe I have a dog that is a reactive dog, and I'm putting them in a situation where they're going to feel like they need to react in any way, I'm setting my dog up for failure. So not that we're going to like hide our dogs from the world and like never let them see anything. You need to find that happy medium. But, I always say, I choose my dog's friends wisely. I absolutely want my dogs to be friendly with other dogs. I want them to be friendly with people. I don't ever want them to leave me and go to another dog or a person without my permission, so that I can assess to say, yes, I feel this is safe for you and this is good for you, or no, I don't. But if I'm going to expose my dog to people or dogs, then I'm going to evaluate whether I think that dog's going to be a good match for mine. So if I have a dog that's maybe a little bit more bashful, or if I have a dog that's maybe the opposite, that's like a real rough player, I am not going to match a rough player with a softie. And this has nothing to do with size of dog. This has nothing to do with breed of dog. Yeah. This has to do with the demeanor of the dog. So if I'm trying to boost my dog's confidence, I'm not going to throw them in a pack of dogs that's like wild and crazy, because that's just going to really make it worse. So pick and choose your dog's friends wisely. The same thing goes for people. If I have a dog that's a bit apprehensive, I'm going to be careful about, people with beards, people with big hats, people that are riding a bike, people that are opening an umbrella, things that are very new.
It may sound funny, but these are exactly the things that we see dogs react unusually to, or unexpectedly to.
I'm going to say to myself, okay, you've never seen a person walking with big boots and an umbrella before, or you've never seen somebody wearing those big fuzzy hats in the winter. So I'm going to be, supportive and helpful for the puppy to say, it's just a person under there, nothing to be scared about, and to help them through. So, we have to really be our dog's best advocate. I
feel like you set me up to buy a big fuzzy hat.
We have a big fuzzy hat, sweetie.
Oh.
In fact, wait there.
Oh, okay. Because if you need it for training, big fuzzy hats are the thing to get your dog used to. So I think that was that answered the question pretty well. And again, as I mentioned earlier, we have a small breed puppy video coming out on Saturday, Monica, that's going to be pretty helpful for you. Oh, wow. This is perfect. So if your dog's afraid of this, I don't know why they would be. Isn't this, look at how terrifying it looks.
You know where I got this hat?
I have no idea.
In Finland.
Oh, neat. Cool. Is it made of reindeer or something?
I hope not.
Oh, I don't know.
It's fake, but it's extremely warm and extremely comfortable.
And extremely fuzzy.
Touch it. Just give it a pet. Nice,
I think I just saw this thing wag when I did that. Camilla asks, my 3-month-old Aussie pup loves people but is scared of other dogs. How much socialization does she need? How often should I take her to see other dogs? I'm in grade 6 and she's my first puppy. Daniela is my mom.
Oh, nice.
Oh, very cool. So for Camilla, I don't want you to think about like a specific number of introductions. It's going to be all about working so that your puppy's comfortable. 3-month-old Aussie pup. So that 3-month-old Aussie pup is comfortable. When you and your mom are working with whatever situation you're working with, whatever thing you're practicing, make sure the focus is the dog. So I want you to go out and maybe be outside of like a dog park or like a fenced off area so that your dog has some separation. As long as your puppy's comfortable, then you're moving forward. It's not about the amount of times that you interact or engage with other dogs. And I'll tell you that that's rolling the dice. If you are taking a chance by introducing your dog to as many dogs as you can, at some point things are going to go wrong and it's going to get so much worse for your Aussie pup. I want you to really think about working with that dog to build their confidence before you introduce them to other dogs. Working, maybe there'll be like a playmate that you find, a little ways down the road. Kayl just talked about play styles. That's going to be really, really important for you and your puppy. Is finding another dog that has an appropriate play style, but at all costs avoid any other dog that's maybe our lab is big and like chesty, bounces into other dogs and loves like rough and tumble kind of play. Avoid that situation at all costs. So I really want you to focus on building your puppy's confidence without other dogs being around, but maybe working on like walking on leash or sits and stays in an area where there may be some other dogs around.
Yeah, and honestly, your dog's so young at this point, just building confidence in the relationship with you sometimes will just really help everything all around because the dog will just have more worldly experience and more confidence, and that will help it as well. Mm-hmm. Oh, my goodness.
Oh, my goodness gracious. It is Brenna Stone dropping the $9.99 super chat. Here is Beeline, just going for a little train ride. No big deal. Thank you for the super chat, Brenna Stone. So I'm getting an ESA for PTSD. Is it possible to train a dog to be aggressive and bark when an intruder comes into your home, but also train them to be kind to familiar people and family members? Now, Brenna, this is not something that we do. We don't teach any protection work. Mm-hmm. I know that a lot of like the working and the dogs and the service dogs, they do condition them, and whether it's on a command or otherwise, I can't say for sure. But what I'll tell you.
Is it possible? Yes.
It's possible, for sure. It's not something that we would teach, but I'll tell you that the foundation, I have friends that are police dog handlers. We've also, know instructors who teach that kind of thing, like the bite work and all that stuff. The foundation is the skills. The foundation, socialization, is exactly the same for those dogs. Mm-hmm. Those things, the behaviors that you're talking about are sets of skills that are taught to the dog, so that it's trick training. Mm-hmm. I know you might not like think of it that way. It's trick training.
There are certain trainers that work specifically on your exact situation where you can train your dog to be able to protect you, but also will understand not to be reactive of people that they know. In a less intense situation, I don't mind if my dogs bark when people come in the house or knock at the door, especially if I'm home alone. It certainly makes me feel safe, but at the same time I want the ability to be like, okay, quiet, like I know this person, or it's just someone dropping off takeout or something like that.
Yeah, sure.
But for your situation, I do think that it's important that you have a dog that's actually specifically trained to do this, so that that you can feel safe, and that also it can be familiar to your people, family members, whatnot. So I think that's good.
Summarizes it
Yeah.
well. What else do we have on tap for maybe oh, you know what?
This is good.
Yeah, and maybe we can talk about introducing your dogs to people, like how we would introduce dogs to people with big hats, or and maybe I'll get to wear the hat. That's really where I'm taking this conversation, and to not jump up on people, maybe that sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, this sort of goes in well with this, I think.
Okay.
So one of the other things that we wanted to sort of talk to you about is, if you're letting your dog go and greet a lot of dogs on the street and they're pulling on their leash to do so, or maybe you're letting your dogs play, when it's time to stop the play, you go to call them back and your dog's not listening. We really want you to remember that those greeting and playing with other dogs can sometimes be very rewarding, and you can use that to your advantage, but at the same time, it also can provide additional challenges for your progression in your training. So, if you're walking your dog and your dog's dragging you towards someone else and they get to go and, jump and play with another dog, or they pull you over to someone and they jump up and that person pets them, you're essentially rewarding your dog for dragging you, towards another person. So we encourage you to discourage that. When it comes time to playing with other dogs, if you go to call them and they won't respond to come back, again, you could be really wrecking your recall by teaching your dog, you have to come to me sometimes, but if you're playing with other dogs and I call you, you don't have to respond. So we just want to remind everybody that although, going to say hi to people or playing with other dogs can be really, really great, at the same time, you want to make sure that you're not inadvertently using those things to reward behaviors that you're not looking for, such as ignoring your recall and pulling on the leash. That brings me to our next thing, and that is working a little bit on socializing your dog with people. And again, socializing doesn't necessarily mean that your dog has a problem with people. It could mean that your dog's obnoxious around people because they're just so darn excited. So you can go either way with this. We've had both types of dogs. We've had dogs that have been apprehensive with people. We've had dogs that have been submissively peers when they see people. We've had dogs that have been wild and crazy, wanting to jump all over people when they see people. We have seen it all. And even in our own household, we've had totally different reactions to people. And kind of how we address it is very similar. Teaching the dog to do an alternate behavior, like sitting on a loose leash in order to be greeted. Having us reward the dog, like our own person reward our dog as somebody comes close. And then also too, maybe having somebody approach and them be the one to reward the dog for sitting or being on a loose leash, or all can be really helpful things.
A couple of really good questions. And this is something that I think Melinda Kelleher, who we know.
Yeah.
Melinda says, do you put playing with other dogs on command?
Yeah, I do. It's go play.
Yeah, we do.
Which is not very creative, but it makes a lot of sense.
It's a release term, or a release command. We just allow the dog knows that they get to go do something with another dog. It's basically like our okay, essentially.
Yeah.
So it's not, the dog isn't required to go and engage and interact with those other dogs, but what it means is you don't have to listen to me at this point. You can just go and do whatever you feel you want to do.
Yeah. In fact, in our puppy classes, so in our Head Start classes, our puppy class is called Head Start. Basically, it's all preventative exercises to make sure that dogs aren't developing issues. But we do a little play session where we let the puppies play with the other puppies. And we teach this right from 10 weeks old. We have the puppies on a long line.
Right. Yeah.
We bring them out to the middle of the room. We focus the puppy on us with some treats, and we work some eye contact. We hold their collar. We get them calm. And then we say, go play, and we let them go and play with the other puppies. And every couple minutes, we go out, step on the long lines, pull the puppies away from each other, practice a little recall, get the puppies engaged, get the eye contact back, and then after a few moments, go play. And we send them out, we call them back. We send them out, we call them back. When they're puppies, though, they don't have a recall trained yet. So this is the training process. We automatically go in, stop them from the play, redirect them using the line, get some high value treats, and then redirect their focus on us. And when the puppies start to learn within just a couple repetitions that when mom or dad start coming, great things happen. She's coming with treats, she's coming with goods, and the puppies will actually start to turn and say, hey mom, what's happening? And we're teaching the dog, yes, playing is good, but at the end of the day, coming back to me is even more important. And so we start that right from the beginning so that our dogs aren't learning to ignore us and take off on us. us.
Yeah, and this circles back around. This is the foundation, guys. When we talked about the foundational skills and steps you want to focus on with training your puppy, your young dog, and training your dog that's new to you, it's the foundational stuff. And you can see how we're continually setting the dog up to be right. So that it's not a question of how tough that distraction is. It's a question of how rewarding you are and how much value you've placed on turning when the dog hears their name or on the recall command or whatever exercise you're working on. I really have to toot. I think we should head on over to the train station and maybe work on that, introducing people to dogs to people. I just wanted to say I really have to toot. I got and you're slow to respond.
I got that.
And then it made it more difficult.
For like a very small second, I forgot we were on live stream, and I thought that maybe like you were telling me that, and I don't know. That'd
be a weird thing to say.
I just had like a bit of a moment there.
Yeah.
I'm sure if I watch back, I'll see my face in that moment and be like, oh, there it is.
Connecting where I had that thoughts. Moment. Yeah. Okay, so who are you going to bring out? Who do you think? So this would be for you guys who are thinking about socialization with your introducing your puppy or dog to people, to being around people, being introduced to people. What's a good way to do that? And it's something that we do a lot in our classes because we know the value. Hi, buddy. We know the value of this because it's an everyday functional skill. It's also for you, those of you guys who are working on those foundational stuff. It's exactly what you need to be working on.
Mac, that'll do.
So we have our herding dog out who has zero obedience training. So this will be kind of fun. But
he does have obedience training.
With a little bit.
Like, he knows basics.
He has a response to name and a recall, but his recall is that'll do. So it's a little bit different. With no further ado, why don't we head on over to the train station?
Okay, we chose Max specifically because he hasn't really gone through much obedience training, and I'm hoping that he is not going to do what he's supposed to do so that I can actually show you what to do with a dog that's not as trained. So if we're trying to teach our dogs how to behave around other people, especially how to learn to listen to us around people, we actually like to start off by having them be totally successful. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to encourage Mac to sit, who actually he defaulted into a sit already. And before I start giving him treats, I'm going to make sure that my leash is loose. Now I have several pieces of food ready, and in a moment Ken's going to approach me, and as he does, I'm going to focus on Mac, and I'm going to focus sit, good boy, good sit. Good boy. I'm going to focus on rewarding him for sitting. Good. Sit. Sit. Yes. Good boy. And then I'm going to have Mac. What is your name? Ken. Walk away. Good. Yes. Okay. So we just start off by having somebody come in close and then moving away to make it easier. Now, Ken's moved away. I've stopped rewarding because I want the best part to be when he's focused and somebody comes close. Okay. Come back again. Good. Sit. Good boy. Sit. Good. Sit. Yes. Good. Sit. Yes, good, sit. Okay, walk away. Sit. Yes, good boy. Okay, both times he's very, very successful. Now, if he was to make a mistake and he was to get up, okay, come back for a second. I'm going to let him make an error. If he was to get up and get out of that sit position, I would just take the leash. I would encourage him back into that sit. Then I would put the slack back in the leash so the leash was loose once again. That's my boy. And then I could reward from there. His face is absolutely just terrible.
You guys can see he's just like... We're training.
Excuse me. Okay. The next step is letting Mac go and greet. So I might say to him, so just like I let him go and play with other dogs, I would say, go play. I would say, here, Mac, go see. Go say hi. Quiet. Go say hi. Good boy. Good. Go say hi. Now I'm going to let him go say hi. And after he's been greeting for a few moments, I'm going to teach him to come back to me when he's called. So I have food in my hand. Again, notice my leash is loose. I'm going to say, Mac. Yes, good boy. I'm going to call his name, and then I'm going to use the food to draw him away from that distraction. So when I'm training this, teaching this, I'm not saying Mac and then hoping that he turns. That would be me testing him. I'm training him. So I'm showing him what I want him to do. So I'm going to give you some food so you can reward him for coming close. Go say hi. Good. Mac. Yes, good boy. Now, he didn't turn as quickly that time, and you'll notice I didn't say yes as early. I waited until I had some attention from him before I said yes, and I would just repeat this process several times. Mac, yes, good boy. So I'm saying his name, and I'm showing him how to turn away from that person. Mac, Yes, good boy.
You saw how snappy. You can see how much
Yeah.
faster.
He's getting faster every time. So I actually think that I could maybe try testing him here. So here's what's going to happen. I'm going to let him, yes, Matt, good boy. I'm going to let him go and say hi to Ken. And after, don't jump, boy. After he's had a few moments to say hello, yes, that's a good choice. I'm going to call his name on a loose leash, and I'm not going to show him treats. If he turns independently, yes, good boy. If he turns independently, I am going to throw a party. I'm going to back away and I'm going to reward very generously. If he doesn't turn, though, I'm going to repeat his name, use a bit of food, and I'm going to go back to helping him. Obviously, if he doesn't pass the test, it means he's not quite ready to be tested because I've only done a couple repetitions here. So let's see what he does. Okay, go say hi. Good. Beeline, be quiet. Mac. Yes! Good boy. Good boy. That was excellent. Now, you'll notice when I'm feeding him for being attentive to me. Yes, Mackie, good boy. Okay. Yay, good for you. Yes. Now, if you have a dog that might do some jumping as they go to say hello, you might need to be ready to use an off. Now, we actually talked about this 2 weeks ago on Livestream, but if he was to go to jump up on Ken, I don't know if he will, though, because he's been trained not to jump up. But if he did go to jump up, will you jump up?
Here,
no. He's like, I know.
He's also been,
I know what's going on
he's
here.
been rewarded so many times in that
Yeah.
sit that he's
If
like,
he did go to jump up, I would tell him off, and I would just use the leash to get him back out, down onto the floor, and then I would reward. But again, like we've said, what we're trying to do is set the dog up for success. So rather than walk him up and let him jump, I'm going to move up and work sit. Good boy. Off. Good off. Yes, good boy. Maybe Ken will pet him while he's holding it off. Good boy. Good off. Yes.
And this
good
is really important
boy.
for you
yes.
as you're working with getting your dog introduced to other people.
Yes.
You need to coach those other people, those strangers on your walk. Say, you know what, I'm actually working on this right now, introducing my dog to new people. Can you help me for a moment?
Yes.
And that helper, that person, doesn't need to go diving in over top, petting your dog, making it even more difficult for them. And by giving them that information, telling them that can you help me train my dog, they're less likely to have that exaggerated response. They'll be like, okay, what do you want me to do?
Yeah.
They'll be really interested. So really do your best to give your helpers that kind of information.
There's two other things that are really important about what I'm doing here that I didn't really draw a lot of attention to. Number one, I have pretty good treats in my pocket, so they're pretty high value. If you're using kibble or dog biscuits or things that are low value, it's quite possible that your dog's going to choose people over top of your treats. So I have some pretty good treats here. The second thing that's important is that I am not tightening the leash when he's being good. So as he's sitting and holding here, look how loose my leash is. Why this is such an important step is that later on, my goal is that I don't need to have a leash on my dog. You know, my dog's loose in the house and I get to the point where it's trained enough. Here, bud, sit. That I don't need to have a leash on. I want my dog to have learned to do this without me having to pull. The dog's not really learning if I have the dog being pulled back on a tight leash. So if I need to do that to stop the dog, I will, but then I must put slack in the leash so the dog is sitting on their own free will, so he has a choice. He can either get up or he can remain sitting, and I will address those two behaviors differently, but I'm going to try my best to get him to choose this by making it easier. If someone was right here and it was too distracting, I wouldn't practice my sit right next to somebody. I would encourage my dog further away, sit. And I would work my sit further until he was able to be successful in his choices. And if he was successful here, okay, I would then move closer to that distraction and build on success, make it harder if he was ready for it. And how do I know that he's ready for it? He's making good choices. The dog, it's going to be really easy to see whether you're ready to make it harder or not. Well, aren't you brilliant? Good boy.
Well, the herding dog's got a chance.
It's like he's got some training. Good boy. I think also he likes treats.
Yes, I would say so. Okay.
Wait.
Kayl's dropping knowledge here in the train station. You know, just for that. I'm going to toot one more time. You guys know that we often do... We have an anchor channel. Basically, we have two podcasts. One's a McCann Dogs podcast that we publish. We haven't started season 2 yet, but we used to publish on a weekly basis. We also have our train station replay. So look for that in the Apple Podcast Store, or Anchor, or on Spotify, or all the places you listen to podcasts. But what we do is you'll see in the description of this video, we want you guys to send in your questions. because if we have an opportunity at the end of the train station to answer these specific questions that you guys send to us. So I'm going to bring out the anchor questions, see if there's some questions in here for us. So there is a whole lot. So maybe we'll just do...
While you're doing that, I just want to remind everybody that, you know, if you're close by and you ever want to come in and check out our facility or our dog training school, we have... we allow spectators to come in and watch in and sit in our classes completely free of charge. You can come in and watch our puppy classes. We have grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, grade 4, all with various different levels. But I know a lot of you guys are from like nowhere near our neck of the woods. So if you check out our homeschool program, you absolutely can get more in-depth information on how to train your dog step by step with one of our instructors. You'll see our faces quite a bit as well.
This lovely face.
And we can help you with whatever you want to work on with your dog, even if you're not near us. It's all online.
For sure. So, and with all that's going on in the world right now, you might have a little bit more time.
Yeah, maybe you don't want to come
your
see
dog
us.
training. And you want to hang out at home, but that's how we can train with you. But so the first question is from Melanie. Let's see what Melanie has to ask here. With my volume on.
Yes, hello. My name is Melanie, and we are in the process of thinking about getting a puppy. But one of my main concerns is that I have balance issues. Have you ever adapted your puppy training skills to work with someone that does have a disability? Thank you.
Yeah, we have, in fact.
Lots of times.
Yeah, we've had to make all kinds of different changes, alterations to what we're working on with people depending on their needs. Because ultimately, the information we give you needs to work for you and your dog. That's really our focus. So one thing that immediately springs to mind, now using a leash or a long line, I know there might be some... she'll have to be careful about like whether she's got a cane or a walker with a leash or a long line, but it's going to be really important to have that leash or long line on her puppy so that she can get control if she needs to. Something that I would for sure be working on, and you'll see it in our, Teach Your Dog, how to get better control of your dog or something like that video.
With the collar?
With the collar, yeah. So we can talk a little bit about the collar grab and how that would work for her.
Yeah, and this is good for everybody, but especially if you have balance issues and you need to even hold on to the dog or get the dog close to you. We really find it is just so important to teach the dog to be very comfortable and confident in coming in close so we can take a hold of their collar, especially if we need to pick the puppy up, hook the leash on, whatever I need. And we find a lot of dogs that don't have a lot of this training when we reach out to take a hold of the puppy to get control or to hook a leash on. Dogs will either get nippy or bitey or will jump away. And we don't want that happening, especially if you have balance issues or you need to get the puppy close. That needs to be something that just happens effortlessly. Dan's dropped that link in the comments now about teaching how to get more control with building more value and taking the collar. And the other thing too is, although we have like sort of a structure on how we do things in terms of what hand we use, what voice, what command we use, how we move our body, because we know it gets best results, there's all kinds of little changes that we can make. We have all kinds of students that, have some type of challenge or disability of some sort, and we can just work around that. What's so cool about dogs is they are extremely adaptable and very, very, very smart. So as long as the information is clear and concise, we can do all kinds of outside the box training, and that's it's actually really, really cool to see the dogs figure things out in that regard. It's awesome.
I know I'd seen a question on one of our videos or a comment on one of our videos that said like, well, this isn't going to work for me because you're telling the dog to walk on your left-hand side, but I want the dog to walk on the right. Think outside the box a little bit, guys. You just apply those same skills, those same practices to the other side. And if that's, one of the challenges that you have, you can definitely modify these skills so that they work for you. But I love that one about building tons of reinforcement for the dog coming in close. Because in that situation, you could actually have a dog that comes to you to give you their leash to take them for a walk. Like these it's a skill that it's fun to teach, but it's so functional. Okay, one more question. This is from Wendy.
Andrea Dreyer says, I'm a homeschool
Kayl.
student and love it.
My question is, I have a 5-month-old lab. We're doing pretty well, doing well on the leash, but any greeting on or off leash, at home or on a walk, he wants to jump on the person. He does stop pretty quickly. So far, the best I can do is stand on his leash or try to get him to eat a treat, but it's just exhausting. And also, he's a licker. So if he does sit nicely to get pet, he's licking.
or standing back up. He just has a hard time sitting,
Lab life.
getting pet nice,
lab
and
problems.
not licking people.
He
And then the
sounds
people have a hard
totally
time too.
ferocious.
So
Yeah.
thanks if you can answer.
Okay. That was a really good question
That is
from
a
Wendy.
really good question.
And huge thank you to Jedi of the Republic. So let's answer this, and we'll jump to Jedi's question
Thank you,
really
Jedi.
quickly. So jumping up, meeting and greeting dogs, meeting and greeting people. That's a big part of what we talked about here.
Yeah,
So-
I think a lot of what we showed and talked about there is really does answer the question. And I think just to build into it, catching it early is really important. I think one thing that people don't realize about jumping up is that it's a very self-rewarding behavior.
Yeah.
And if the dog is doing a lot of jumping up and then we're pulling the dog off and getting him to sit, well, the crime's already been committed. The
Yeah.
dog's already done the jumping. And for some dogs, even though they get pulled off of the person, they're like, haha, I already did it. That was so fun. And they just don't care. So the best thing to do is to try to learn what body language cues your dog is going to get off before they jump.
I like this. This is good. I like where this is going because
Wow.
this
You really-
allows
you really did
this,
like that.
This allows you to be proactive about it, and that's what we're always trying to do is figure out how you can be successful earlier. So let's talk about this. What are some of the cues that your dog is going to give you before they jump?
You make me laugh with how excited you get sometimes.
Oh, I know. I just get pumped when we're like.
So a couple of things that your dog might do before they jump is they might coil, they might start to wag, they might start to tense up, their ears will start to come up. You'll know, you'll get to know it pretty quickly, especially if your dog's doing a lot of jumping up. And that is when we want you to get your dog into that sit or to be focusing on controlling. If you're missing those pre-cue moments and then the dog's jumping up, your timing is going to be a bit off. And if that's happening a lot, that in itself is going to prevent you from making changes. And also remember, not everybody has to come in and pet your dog. So if your dog's being a bit wild and crazy and people are still coming in, still petting them, being close, and just your dog doesn't have any opportunity to make a good choice, then that can be a challenge for them to learn.
Absolutely. I want to say hello to Jess from Gone to the Snow
Jess.
Dogs.
Or Jamie.
Hanging out here in the train station. So Jedi of the Republic, the $9 super chat. Thank you for your super chat. Hey, Ken and Kayl, love your channel. It's been a great resource. I've got a question. My 6-month-old puppy is very food motivated, but she's still slow at reacting to my commands. Do you have any tips? So I asked just a follow-up question. Was there a specific skill that you were looking for? Because we can really dive down into that specifically. But let's talk a little bit about getting faster responses. What are some of the things that we do with our own dogs to get snappier responses?
Well, I wouldn't be too worried about the dog being too food motivated that much right now because it's only 6 months old and you want to sort of use that to your advantage. If the dog is really food motivated, but she's slow to reacting commands, then I would be using food with really good timing to back up your command to teach a faster response. So kind of like what I showed you with, I don't know if you were watching a few minutes ago when I had Mac, our border collie, out, but I was teaching him to turn snappy because I was saying his name. And then within 1 second, I was using the food to lure him towards me. And I think a common mistake that people make is they'll say the command a couple times, they won't get a result, and then they'll use the food to kind of cause the dog to turn. And then what's happened is the dog said, okay, well, you're going to say it 4 or 5 times and then you're going to show me food. So I don't have to turn until you say it 4 or 5 times.
Right.
So the key here, if you really want your dog to learn to respond quickly each and every time, is only give your dog one command and then follow that command immediately by using some food to help your dog. Now, this is a little bit trickier than it sounds because although we love food and we love to train our dogs with food initially, we are also big believers in not being dependent on treats. So I don't want to have to carry treats around wherever I go in order to get my dog to listen to me. So timing is super, super crucial. If you're going to use food or any type of lure or reward, it needs to come within 1 second of you giving the command and not at the same time. So for example, if I was to put pizza in front of Ken's face,
We just talked about pizza at the beginning of the thing because I love pizza.
and I had pizza out and I asked him, hey, Ken, can you do the dishes? And he had pizza there. Well, he's going to be like, well, of course I'm going to do it because he knows exactly what I'm going to offer him.
Yeah.
But it would be very different if I was saying, hey, hun, can you do the dishes? And then him say yes. And then I'd say, oh, because of that, I'm going to give you some pizza.
Surprise pizza. There's no better pizza.
I'm not using...
And then you hear in the background, you hear,
I'm not bribing him. I'm using that pizza as a reward. Or I could say, could you do the dishes without presenting the pizza? And then say, hey, if you do, I have this. Then he's going to start to say, this whole doing the dishes thing is really important, which is a horrible example because he actually is really good at doing the dishes, probably better than me. But I was just being a bit I guess I was being a bit, what's the word? I was assuming your role, which I shouldn't have.
Whatever.
Because
it's fine.
It's
fine. I think it was a great example.
I think it was a great example. Pizza and dishes. What could be
pizza
better?
and dishes together at last. But it also really reinforces for you. And let's talk a little bit about jackpot rewarding. When you get those super snappy turns, and Jetta, did you talk a little bit about that? I don't think you did.
No, I didn't go
Yeah,
for
so
it.
Jedi of the Republic, if you're working some skill, and let's say it's the response to name or the sit or whatever the thing is, and you have a moment where your dog does it extra fast, they respond immediately. And normally, it takes them a second to get into that sit, and this time it's half a second. Really let them know that they're making a great choice. You can really, pour on the praise, make a big deal of that success, and even feed them like 2, 3, 4, 5 treats when you normally give them one. One thing I want all of you guys to remember is that when you're rewarding your dog, rather than presenting like 5 treats in the cup of your hand and feeding them like a horse, feed them those treats one at a time. What's so funny?
Feed them like a horse.
Yeah, well, it's how I feed horses.
Go on. You're doing a great job.
Feed them those treats one treat at a time. Really drag out the longevity. They'll see it as more valuable. The reward that they're getting is drawn out a little bit longer, and they'll feel like it's more valuable than if they get one big mouthful of all of those treats at the same time. Again, really focus on your attitude when you get those super snappy responses. I'm genuinely excited when my dog is successful. You guys have seen Kayl train on this channel, and it's even worse.
I'm obnoxious.
She's obnoxious. And
in the best way.
That's why you get those super motivated responses from your dog, because they connect with that. They're like, wow, you are really excited about me, walking past that distraction, or you're really excited about me performing that skill that we just did in agility.
What I love is when I see like our watchers like in the flesh, like whether they're at school or wherever.
Right.
And they say, when I watch your videos, I have to like put my dog away or I have to like turn the volume down because when they hear your voice, they go crazy.
That happens a lot.
And that's so nice to hear. It really shows you that dogs are so responsive to tone of voice and praise and how you speak. And if you can use it in the right way in your training, it can go such a long way and you don't have to have food as your only resource.
For sure. Now, we're in overtime here. I think we had so many great questions. I hope we were able to give you guys a little bit more insight on socialization. We need to say a huge thank you to Dan, lots of links Luton, in the chat. I've seen him going crazy, and he's actually activating Spot the Bot.
Actually, he's in my bad books right now because he said, Dan, what's it like being the best looking McCann sibling?
Oh, wow.
You realize I'm reading this, right?
Yeah, I know. That's a good point. So huge thank you to Dan, the moderator man. He's been helping you guys out in the chat. Also a thank you to Daniela, to C. Ellis, Caroline, Hawaii 50, Monica Torres, Camilla, Brenna, and Jedi of the Republic for the super chats tonight. We know we love hanging out with you guys. If you're looking for more training, here's your opportunity to actually train with us online. It's our basically My.Can 2.0. Yep. It's our new version of the online training where you get access to the information, but you actually get like support from a real dog trainer. Yep. I think that's really where this training can make a big difference in a lot of people's lives. And if this is your first time here on the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button.
Hopefully it's not your last.
Yeah, and who knows? After today's live stream, it got a little out of hand. I can't say whether or not you'll be back. But if this is your first time on the channel, make sure you hit the subscribe button. We publish new videos every week to help you to have a well-behaved, four-legged family member.
Our live show every other week.
That's right. Yeah, every 2 weeks. So make sure you click that. When you click the subscribe button, make sure you hit the notification button as well so that you don't miss out on any of our videos. And on that note, I want to thank you guys for watching. I'm Ken.
I'm Kayl.
Happy training. Bye for now, guys.